In this video, I'm going to explain the concept of debit and credit. What is a debit and what is a credit in accounting? So do you remember that in chapter number 2, we have started analyzing transactions. And I have explained that every transaction affects at least 2 accounts. And you must remember that the accounting equation has to be in balance at each time after each transaction. And we have analyzed 6 transactions together in class. Let's do the first one that we have already done several times. That comes from the Libby and Libby book, 10th edition. Chipotle issues 2,000 of additional common stock to new investors for cash. We have already analyzed a transaction. And do you remember that when you analyze a transactions, there are 2 steps that need to be followed. Step number 1, you have to classify and identify the accounts that are used here for the analysis of the transaction. So here we agreed in the past that this transaction will increase the cash account and it will increase as well the common stock account, which is a stockholders' equity sections account. So here in brackets, we have as well specified what type of accounts we're dealing with and what is the impact. Step number 2, when you analyze a transaction, you verify that the accounting equation is in balance. Here, for the moment, every account is represented by a column. The cash account and the common stock account increase both by 2,000. You have here 2,000 on the left side of the accounting equation equals 2,000 on the right side of the accounting equation. Now, let's analyze the same transaction but with T accounts. So remember, cash increases, stockholders' equities sections increases, the common stock account of SE increases. So what I'm doing here on the following slide, I'm doing exactly the same, but instead of representing one account by one column, I'm representing one account with a T account. You recognize here the 2 accounts that I'm going to use to analyze this transaction A from Chipotle. Here I have my T account. It's called a T account because it has the shape of a T that represents the cash account. And I have here my other T accounts that represents the common stock account. Look, I've put pluses and minuses sign. The plus sign, the cash account functions plus minus. The common stock account functions minus plus. Cash is an account which is on the left side of the accounting equation. Because it is on the left side of the accounting equation, if you want to increase an account which is on the left side of the accounting equation, you have to record the number on the left side of the T account, left. The same logic applies for my accounts which are on the right-hand side of the accounting equation. For my green accounts, look, those accounts which are on the right-hand side of the accounting equation have been colored in green, and this is not a coincidence. Here, because they are placed on the right-hand side of the accounting equation, if I want to increase those T accounts, I have to record the amount on the right-hand side of the T account. Right? Right. So that's the rule that I want you to remember now for the analysis of the 3 transactions that we're going to do together. You recognize the transaction that you have analyzed in the past. Cash increases because the company has issued 2,000 of additional common stock, and common stock increases as well. How am I going to record this in my T account? I increase my cash account by 2,000. This is where I put my 2,000. And I increase my common stock by 2,000. I put it on the right-hand side of my T account because I've told you about my rule, right, left. So this is how you analyze a transaction using the T accounts. Let's do B now. Do you remember B? This is when the company has borrowed 6,000 from the bank for a long-term liability, a notes payable of 6,000. We've analyzed this transaction in the past. Cash increases by 6,000. Notes payable, which is a liability account, increases by 6,000. How do I transfer these amounts in my accounts, in my T accounts? Cash increases by 6,000, so I have to record the amount on the left-hand side of my T account, and notes payable which is a liability, a green account, which functions minus plus, has to increase by 6,000. So I'm going to record the 6,000 on the right-hand side of my notes payable account. Let's continue one more before explaining the concept of debit and credit. You probably remember transaction C. This is when the company purchases 10,000 of equipment, paying 2,000 in cash, and signing a 2-year note for the balance. So we said that our equipment increased by 10,000, cash decreased by 2,000, and notes payable increased by 8,000 because we've paid cash and the rest we've taken a loan. So how are we going to record these three amounts? So you remember that every transaction affects at least 2 accounts. Here, this transaction affects 3 accounts. So equipment increases by 10,000. Equipment being a red account, an account which is on the left-hand side, it functions plus minus. So I have to increase my equipment by 10,000. I have to decrease my cash by 2,000. I've used 2,000 of my cash to pay for my equipment of 10,000. And I have to increase my notes payable by 8,000. Have you seen that the moment you put a number on one side, 10,000, you have to put the same amount on the other side. Here you have 2,000 on the right-hand side, plus 8,000 on the right-hand side. So together it's 10,000 on the left-hand side for equipment and 10,000, 2,000 and 8,000, which are recorded on the right-hand side of a T account. So every time you do something in accounting, there is a name for everything that you do. Whenever you write an amount on the left side of a T account, it's called to debit an account. Whenever you're going to write an amount on the right-hand side of the T account, it's called to credit an amount. So to debit is whenever you write the amount on the left-hand side. So here I have the debit side of my cash account, which is on the left side. You have the debit side of my notes payable, which will always be on the left side. To debit an amount does not mean more or less. To debit an amount means to write the amount on the left-hand side of the T account. The same applies for the concept of to credit. To credit an amount means to write the amount on the right-hand side of the T account. Sometimes it means more, sometimes it means less. Look, notes payable. If I credit notes payable, it means more. If I credit my cash account, it means less. So this is something that I need you to remember and that you have to keep forever. To debit doesn't mean more, doesn't mean less. To debit only means that you write the amount on the left-hand side. To credit doesn't mean more, doesn't mean less. To credit an account means only that you're going to write the amount on the right-hand side of the account. Sometimes to debit means more, sometimes to debit means less. The same applies for to credit. Sometimes it means more, sometimes it means less. It depends on what type of account you're dealing with. If you're dealing with an asset, to debit will have a different meaning than if you're dealing with a liability. So it depends on the type of account. So this is something that you need always to remember. And remember that what I have told you, when you debit one account, you have to credit the same amount somewhere else. So it means that the total amount debited must be equal to the total amount credited. Remember the transaction C with the equipment that was purchased for 10,000. We debited equipment 10,000 and we credited 10,000 into different T accounts. Let me go back here to my T accounts. So for transaction A, if I use the words to debit and to credit, transaction A, this is when the company has issued new shares. So I would say the following: debit cash 2,000, credit common stock 2,000. That is for my transaction A. What about my transaction B? My transaction B, this is when Chipotle takes a loan of 6,000. I debit cash 6,000 and I credit notes payable 6,000. So the amount debited has always to be the same than the amount credited. And for transaction C, I debited 10,000 in my equipment, credited 2,000 in my cash account, and credited 8,000 in my notes payable. So remember the concept of to debit and to credit, and don't make the error of thinking that to debit means more, to debit means less. Here, if I'm dealing with a red account, for example, the assets here, an asset functions plus, minus. The green accounts, which are on the right-hand side of the accounting equation, function minus, plus. And that is the concept of to debit and to credit.